The snow fell softly in Boulder, Colorado, on Christmas Eve, 1996. The air was crisp and the streets were silent, blanketed in a serene layer of snow that seemed to muffle the world outside. A blanket of white covered the quaint, upscale neighborhood where the Ramsey family lived. The houses, adorned with festive decorations, stood as silent sentinels in the night, their lights twinkling like stars in the cold winter air. John and Patsy Ramsey, along with their children, 9-year-old Burke and 6-year-old JonBenét, had just returned from a festive holiday party. The family, bundled in their winter coats, laughed and chatted as they made their way home, their breath visible in the frosty air. They were the picture of a happy family, their beautiful home adorned with Christmas lights and the spirit of the season. The house glowed warmly, a beacon of joy and celebration in the quiet night. Little did they know, this idyllic facade masked a darkness that would soon shatter their world. The festive decorations, so full of cheer, seemed almost mocking in the face of the impending tragedy. The festive cheer would soon be replaced with unimaginable horror. The lights that once symbolized joy would flicker out, leaving behind a void of despair and confusion. As the night deepened and the family slept, a sinister plot was about to unfold, forever changing the landscape of their lives and etching a chilling mystery into the annals of American crime. The quiet of the night was deceptive, hiding the malevolent intentions that lurked in the shadows. The Ramseys, prominent members of the community, were known for their successful business ventures and their adorable daughter, JonBenét. They were a family that seemed to have it all, their lives filled with love, success, and the promise of a bright future. JonBenét was a bubbly child beauty queen, her blonde curls and infectious smile captivating everyone she met. She was a little star shining brightly in the world of child pageantry, her charm and talent winning hearts and trophies alike. She had a bright future ahead of her, filled with the promise of pageants, performances, and endless possibilities. Her dreams were as big as her smile, and her potential seemed limitless. But on this night, evil lurked in the shadows, waiting to extinguish that light. The darkness crept closer, unseen and unbidden, ready to strike and shatter the peace of the Ramsey household. As the hours ticked by, the unsuspecting family slept peacefully, unaware of the tragedy that awaited them. The clock ticked on, each second bringing them closer to a nightmare that would forever alter their lives and leave a scar on the community of Boulder. The first rays of dawn on December 26, 1996, brought with them a sense of unease in the Ramsey household. The morning light, usually a symbol of hope and new beginnings, cast long shadows that seemed to foretell the darkness that was about to unfold. Patsy Ramsey, her heart pounding with a mother's intuition, awoke to a chilling discovery. She had a feeling that something was terribly wrong, a sense that gnawed at her even before she left her bed. On the back staircase of their sprawling home lay a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note. The note was out of place, an alien presence in their familiar surroundings. It was an odd sight, this ominous message resting on the steps as if placed there with deliberate care. The handwriting was jagged, the words filled with a menacing intent that sent shivers down her spine.
My mind was racing. Thoughts collided in my head, each more terrifying than the last. I snatched up the note, my eyes frantically scanning the words that would send a chill down my spine. The words seemed to blur together, each sentence more horrifying than the last, and plunge me into a nightmare from which I would never awaken. The reality of the situation hit me like a tidal wave, overwhelming and relentless.
The note was bizarre, lengthy, and filled with threats. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a twisted script that seemed to come from a place of pure malice. It demanded a precise sum of money, $118,000, for JonBenét's safe return. The specificity of the amount was chilling, adding another layer of dread to the already terrifying situation. The writer, claiming to be a small foreign faction, warned against contacting the authorities and threatened to behead JonBenét if their instructions were not followed to the letter. Panic seized Patsy. The threats were not just words on paper. They were a direct assault on her very soul. Her daughter, her precious little girl, was missing. The thought was unbearable, a pain that cut deeper than any physical wound. The note, with its strange demands and chilling threats, only amplified the terror that gripped her heart. Each word was a dagger, each sentence a new horror.
I screamed for John, my voice raw with fear, the sound echoing through the house like a siren of despair. And in that moment, our world shattered. The life we knew, the safety we felt, was gone in an instant, replaced by a nightmare that would haunt us forever.
The Ramsey home, once filled with the joy of the holidays, transformed into a scene of chaos and despair. The festive decorations, which once symbolized joy and togetherness, now stood as a stark contrast to the grim reality that had unfolded within those walls. Friends, family and neighbors gathered, offering comfort and support as the police swarmed the property. The community, once united in celebration, now came together in shared grief and confusion, trying to make sense of the unimaginable tragedy that had struck one of their own. The house, now a crime scene, buzzed with activity as investigators meticulously searched for any sign of JonBenét or her abductors. Every corner of the home was examined with painstaking detail as the authorities hoped to uncover any clue that might lead them to the missing girl or her captors. Every room was scrutinized, every drawer opened, every inch of the property combed for clues. The forensic team worked tirelessly, knowing that any small piece of evidence could be crucial in solving the mystery of JonBenét's disappearance. Hope, though fading with each passing moment, still flickered. The community held candlelight vigils, praying for JonBenét's safe return, clinging to the belief that she might still be found alive.
Could JonBenét be alive? The question lingered in the minds of everyone involved in the search. Volunteers scoured the neighborhood, hoping to find any sign of the missing girl. Was she being held captive, waiting for us to fulfill the ransom demands? The ransom note left behind only added to the confusion and fear as the family and authorities grappled with the possibility of a kidnapping.
Hours later, that flicker of hope was brutally extinguished. The search had taken a devastating turn, and the reality of the situation began to set in. John Ramsey, accompanied by a family friend, made a horrifying discovery in the basement of their home. The sight that greeted them was beyond anything they could have imagined. Concealed in a little-used wine cellar lay JonBenét's lifeless body. The small, dimly lit room, once a place for storing wine, had become the final resting place for the young girl. She had been brutally murdered, her tiny body bearing the marks of violence. The forensic team documented the injuries, each one telling a story of the horrific events that had transpired. A cord was found around her neck, and duct tape covered her mouth. These grim details painted a picture of the terror JonBenét must have endured in her final moments. The image of their little girl, lying cold and lifeless in the basement, would forever be seared into the minds of everyone present. The grief and shock were palpable as the reality of the loss set in. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community and across the nation. News of the tragedy spread quickly, leaving people everywhere in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The festive season was overshadowed by a pall of grief and disbelief. What should have been a time of joy and celebration was now marked by mourning and unanswered questions. Who could have committed such a heinous act against an innocent child? The search for answers had only just begun, and the community was left grappling with the horror of the crime and the fear that the perpetrator was still among them. As investigators delved into the perplexing details of the case, a glaring inconsistency emerged. There were no signs of forced entry.
The Ramseys' home, nestled in a quiet, affluent neighborhood, was typically secured, and on that fateful night, all doors and windows were found bolted shut.
The only possible point of entry seemed to be a small basement window, but it was covered in cobwebs, undisturbed for weeks, perhaps months. This lack of forced entry cast a long shadow of suspicion on the Ramsey family themselves.
The police, faced with a baffling crime scene and a lack of obvious external suspects, began to scrutinize the family's movements. Their every word, every action, every minute detail of their lives was dissected and analyzed.
The media, sensing a sensational story, descended upon Boulder. their cameras capturing every tear, every stumble, every moment of vulnerability displayed by the grieving family. The lack of a clear intruder fueled public speculation and ignited a media frenzy.
The Ramseys, once the epitome of success and happiness, were now at the center of a whirlwind of suspicion, their lives dissected and judged in the court of public opinion.
The ransom note, initially a beacon of hope in the desperate search for JonBenét, quickly became a central piece of evidence in the investigation. Its unusual length, the oddly specific ransom amount, and the dramatic language used all raised red flags for investigators.
Handwriting experts were brought in to analyze the note, comparing it to writing samples from both John and Patsy Ramsey. While the results proved inconclusive, the note remained a source of endless debate and speculation.
The note's author claimed to be part of a small foreign faction, yet no credible claims of responsibility ever surfaced. The demand for $118,000, while a seemingly random amount, was eerily close to the amount John Ramsey had recently received as a bonus.
Was this a coincidence or a chilling detail suggesting an inside job? The note, rather than providing clear answers, seemed to generate more questions.
It was a perplexing piece of the puzzle, one that investigators hoped held the key to unlocking the truth behind JonBenét's tragic fate.